lovely fire. Oh, hello. Good evening, and welcome to another fireside tale. There's quite a tale that goes along with the preparation of this fireplace for the installation of the wood-burning stove. When we were clearing it out, found some old papers in there, which appear to form some kind of, no, not exactly a diary, a notebook. Well, just papers, but left by this little girl who must have been one of the former occupants. Anyway, I thought I'd take a look at it. Tells the story of, well, Mum and Dad, and the girl from the flats over the road, and the man in the black suit. It goes like this. I think Mum's cross with Dad. It's not because he made friends with Alison from the flats across the road. That's what often makes mums upset with dads in films and books and things. My mum's not like other mums. Last time I saw Alison, she looked so sad. She stopped outside the window while Dad pretended not to see her. Then she walked back to the removal van. Now she's gone, and she's taken her little girl, Susie, with her, the one I made friends with. When I first met Susie, I asked about her braids. Her hair was all done up in stiff ropes down the back of her head. Some people call them cornrows, she said. Took a long time to do, she told me. Dad was chatting to Alison as we walked up the grey steps to their flat. He was asking her about the light that kept flashing on the landing outside their door. Couldn't the council fix it for you? He was asking. Must drive you mad. She just laughed and told him how it always took ages for anything to get sorted. Susie said it was the man in the black suit that made it do that. Her mum shushed her and told her off for making stuff up. Changing the subject, Alison asked Dad what he did. She laughed when he said architect. She laughed again when he said he hadn't designed these flats. She stopped laughing suddenly when she opened the door to the flat and saw the letter inside. It was in a white envelope with little slanting green stripes around the edge. Dad asked if it was bad news. She laughed again. Her laugh was different this time, sort of shaky. We went to Susie's room. She laughed when she saw me looking for the stairs. Then I remembered it was all on one floor. We were upstairs already. Never been in a block of flats before? She asked. Well, yeah, but... Is this your room? I asked. No, that was my brother's room, she said. Oh, I said. Walking past the door with the name Ben on it, we went in the next room. We played for a bit. I asked her who the man in the black suit was. She laughed and said, Didn't you know about him? All the kids in the flats do. Susie carried on about the man in the black suit until I started to wish I hadn't asked her. Whenever the lights went all funny like the one outside Susie's flat, you knew he'd been past your door. That meant he was coming to take you away soon. Why would he do that? I asked. I don't know, she said. I think it's because he's dead inside. One night she couldn't sleep and she heard slow footsteps outside the flat. They were so slow she thought her brother had come back. She peed on the floor and her mum woke up and cleaned her up, cleaned the floor, took her back to bed. But through the door frame she could see the light flickering on and off. It had been like that ever since. Afterwards, other kids in the flat said it must have been the man in the black suit. I asked her if that was why the flat next door to hers had the picture in the window of an angel or saint or something, spearing a demon. Had her neighbours put it there to ward off evil spirits like this man in the black suit? She gave a bitter little laugh and said, He wouldn't be stopped by no angel or saint, Betty. I must have looked scared or something, because she looked at me and smiled. Don't worry, Betty, she said. He won't come for you. You live on the other side of the road, the side with the big houses on. I'd never thought of myself as rich before, or my house as big, but it was true. We do live in a house, not a block of flats. Dad doesn't pay rent to a landlord or the council. He pays something called a mortgage. He says you can still lose your house if you don't pay, but if you rent, that's called eviction. Whereas if you own it, it's called repossession. Possession is 9/10 of the law, he says. You can't move into a house without vacant possession, he says. He talks a lot about this sort of thing. Sometimes I think it's all he ever talks about. Let's play on SingStar, Susie said. Do you like One Direction? When I went to the toilet, I heard Alison in the kitchen talking to Dad in a hard voice. Can't afford a shrine anymore, she said. My boy died, so the flat's too big for us, they're saying. What do they want me to do? Rent out his room? Only I forgot. We're not allowed to sublet, are we? I didn't hear what Dad said in reply. But when it was time to go home, she was all smiles. She looked pretty then, but not as nice as Mum. She looked pretty because her eyes were shining. We got on really well, Susie and me. One weekend, she wasn't there though. I went over the road to ask for her. Alison said she was at her dad's for the weekend. I turned around, disappointed. Saw Dad waving at her from our front garden. Alison was waving back, smiling. Mum was watching from the upstairs window, blowing smoke rings, like she always used to. She didn't wave. She did smile, though. She always smiled. I sat around in my room for a bit. Later, I went for a sleepover at Daisy's. I woke up, screaming, from a dream about a man in a black suit who trapped me and Susie in a big wood-panelled room full of green leather benches. He was under a bright spotlight, making a speech in a high, piping voice. The glare of the spotlight meant I couldn't see him clearly, though not the others on the benches listening to him who were not lit. It sounded like they were like him too. He had boiled white jelly eyes, like the ones on the salmon we'd had for tea last night, and baked soft pink salmon skin too, and no teeth, just gums that sucked at you like a baby drinking from its mummy. I could tell he was dead inside. I was relieved, though, when I woke up and found myself screaming, because in the dream I couldn't. It was like I'd lost my voice. It was like I had that thing Mum said she had. Larry something. Daisy's mum tried to ring Dad. He wouldn't answer. She drove me back. We sat in the car in the dark outside our house. She sighed and rang his phone, sighed again and rang his phone again. Finally he answered. She told him what had happened, then told me he'd come out and get me. I looked towards our house. No lights came on. Suddenly he appeared, out of breath and buttoning up his shirt from the other side of the road. I couldn't understand it. He looked like he'd just come from the flats where Alison lived. Daisy's mum looked puzzled about it too. She didn't say anything. Dad thanked her and said sorry for not answering his phone. He took me inside. I had trouble sleeping that night. I was worried the dream might carry on when I went back to sleep. I was trying to figure out why Dad had been over at the flats. After a while, I hugged Beatrice until Mum came and soothed me to sleep. Before she did, I asked her about it. She just said Dad needed to move on now. If he was happy and he made this other lady happy, they both had her blessing. I know it sounds weird that she didn't mind them being together. Like I said, she's not like other mums. I didn't tell her about the man in the black suit. Didn't want to worry her. With her watching over me, he didn't come back that night anyway. I didn't tell Dad about him either. Can't really talk to him about feelings and things like that. I don't really want to. Like I said, he's so cut off. He's not there somehow. I should talk to Mum about stuff like that instead. Mum really wanted him to be happy. She wanted them both to be happy. But then Dad decided he didn't want to be friends with Alison anymore. Mum sort of changed after that. Alison came over once with Susie the weekend after that time I'd come back early from the sleepover. Dad said Susie was welcome to come in and play. Alison stood there like she was waiting to be invited in. He said, "You kids will have to amuse yourself. I've got a lot of work on at the moment." He looked at Alison as he said the last bit, with a funny, heavy voice, like he was spelling something out. "Oh," she said, sort of surprised, and left. She came round another weekend when Susie was at her dad's. When I said I'd go to my room, he got me making cups of tea for them and finding other chores for me to do downstairs so he wouldn't be alone with her. When she'd gone, he looked at me and sighed and said, "You look so much like your mother, you know." Then he said, "Without her, I feel sort of dead inside." I asked if I should go to Daisy's for a sleepover again, even though I knew that they probably wouldn't invite me after the last time. He just shook his head. The truth is, I was a bit frightened of him when he got like that, sort of not there. He got so angry sometimes, ever since Mum went away. Like I said, if I want to talk about feelings and stuff, I don't talk to him, I talk to Mum. At least, that's what I used to do. Until she suddenly stopped coming when I hugged Beatrice, which had always worked before. That's how I knew she was cross. Really cross. It's what Dad used to call her giving him the silent treatment when she was still around. Now she wouldn't even come and see me at night anymore. It seemed like she was giving me the silent treatment. I think it's because he made Alison sad when Mum had given them her blessing, which must have been sort of tough for her. When she went, Dad didn't really say where she'd gone, what had happened to her. One day she just wasn't there anymore. Really not there, not the way Dad often isn't there. I remember they were fighting quite hard the day before, Dad shouting so hard I heard something break in the kitchen. I was scared to go down and look. Too scared to come out of my room even. She still visited me at night after that though, spoke to me through my rag doll, Beatrice. The doll has big blue eyes and bright yellow hair, and she always smiles. Now she's as silent as the grave. I tried shaking her, throwing her at the wall, stamping on her until the stuffing came out. And I said, "Sorry, Mum. Please forgive me." The doll just stared and smiled. What was left of her did anyway.